Started. Hey guys, this is Tu. Welcome to the Fang Real Estate Show. We do this every Sunday at 11 a.m. Central Time. Really the point of this show is really to just bring other Hmong investors, or don't have to be Hmong, but other investors out there on the field, and just to kind of share what they're doing, the expertise that they have, and to kind of just share and spread the knowledge around to all of us investors and the community and stuff like that. So every week, I bring one or two of these investors or experts to kind of share their stories and informations and tips and things like that with us. Okay, so this week we have the ones that everybody wants to be on the show, uh, and I like him because he's got the same name as me. So
Yeah.
this week we got two Vang on the show, and I'll let him introduce himself in a little bit. But if you guys are just joining us, this is what we usually do. Please comment, share, comment, ask any questions that you guys have on the side of the live stream. If you're watching this later on YouTube, go ahead and leave any questions or comments below, and I either get that to two or we'll answer your questions through that. Go ahead and feel free to share at this point with your family and friends. Hopefully, everybody's staying safe, and we'll get started. So, two, why don't you do a little quick like introduction, of who you are and how you get started in real estate.
Yeah, sure. My name is Tu Vang, coming out of Fresno, California. I own a company called Vang Invest Inc. And, you know, I appreciate you guys welcoming me onto the show. I know you and I have been talking back and forth about, trying to get on and book some time and whatnot. So I appreciate you finally welcoming me onto the platform. And, this time we didn't break the internet, so that's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, we meant to come in. We meant to do this discussion 2 weeks ago, but I think with all the things that were going on around, maybe the servers weren't working or something like that. So sorry that we delayed this 2 weeks. But hey, we're here now, so that's great. So how did you get into real estate?
So, the long story short was, I finally found a purpose, right? So when you look at a higher level in life, in short, it's purpose. I saw purpose, to expand upon that. I think as we all grow up, especially being Asian American, right? Our folks always says, go to school, get a good job, right? So
Yep.
they always push us towards, getting a doctor's degree because that's kind of the American dream. So that's what they're taught, and that's what we were taught, right? So uh, I got a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering, and that to me, I used to think that that was the answer to life, right?
Hmm.
So I got that, and I didn't see any difference in terms of what when I used to make minimum wage versus what I make now, right? So because I'm still kind of living paycheck to paycheck, so I told myself, I said, there's got to be a purpose more than this, right?
Yeah.
Because what's happening is I'm living day by day, and the day kind of repeats itself. You go to work, you come home, take care of the kids, take a bath, go to sleep, and the cycle repeats. So there's got to be more to life than this, right? So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I got started. So I started searching for answers.
So, but I mean, I attempted a double E major in college too, but I wasn't as smart as you, so I switched over to math.
uh,
Um,
it's persistent. It's persistent.
but I thought double E's, electrical engineer, you guys make a lot of money.
Oh
So,
yeah.
so
I
why?
mean,
Yeah.
I think the thing is, as our income grows, our expense also grows with it, right? So being in the middle class, you think that all the stuff that you're getting, the new cars, the new house, the new boat, and this and that is kind of what signifies you as being rich or being wealthy, right? So, let alone the only thing is you're getting more liability, right? So the more
Yeah.
money you make, the more in debt you become.
Yeah.
It's just the ideology.
Yeah. I always say the middle class sucks. Like, like
Yeah.
it's worse than being poor. don't have money, or you're super, or you're rich.
Yeah,
So being middle, I mean, you gotta pay everything yourself.
correct, correct.
It's I don't know. To me, it's worse. Um, but so but then you were started to search. So when you were searching, why did you decide on real estate? I mean,
Um, I think I came upon yeah. I came upon a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad.
yeah,
Um, and with that, it gave me kind of like the answer. And the only thing he really talked about was he talked about um, he talked more about real estate, right? And that's kind of
yeah.
what got me into it. So with that,
Well, Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. That's not even a real estate book, right? But
it,
why did? I
yeah,
mean, yeah,
his main focus was mainly on like real estate, right? So
yeah,
um, I know he talked about business
yeah,
and this and that, right? So I thought about business too, and I thought about an inventory based business, right? Buy and sell, consumer type business. You
yeah,
buy a product and you sell. And what was happening was a startup, well, you have to hold a lot of inventory, right? So
yeah,
I think that book kind of led me to believing that, having passive income and becoming an investor with real estate was kind of the answer. But I didn't know how to get there, right?
yeah.
So I mean, I started digging a lot, and there's quite a bit of book that I read to kind of get me to believing that real estate is kind of the answer.
Oh, okay. So right now, are you still working, or did you quit your job, or what is it now? Where are you at now?
So I'm still currently employed as
Yeah,
a supplier quality engineer.
yeah.
So I work full time,
So that's
typical.
the topic. That's the topic of this show, right? Like
Yeah,
this the theme of this show. How to make six figures while still doing your 9 to 5.
yeah,
Uh, and so it's okay. You guys don't. I know that there's some of our investor friends that they quit or they quit their job and they go in full time. But at the same time, you could still do real estate
yeah,
and still do your job.
yeah,
I think we have uh, before I hated the concept of 9 to 5, or
yeah.
like I hated a job until actually I think you went to the 10x Growth Con. So it wasn't until I started listening to Grant Cardone that it's like, dude, a job it's like what helps you to get to where you're at. So if you look at it in that where your goal is, and if your job is something that's gonna help you take you to where your goal is, then it's okay to have a 9 to 5
Right,
until
right.
you reach where you at.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
um uh anyways, with that said, you went to the 10x growth con, so how was that?
So yeah, that's a for those that hasn't gone, yeah, and let me back up a little bit, right?
Yeah,
So the other piece to that you mentioned was, I think out of anything out of this interview, one thing that I do want to preach is that you guys can do this on a part-time base. So don't let the fact that you guys have a 9 to 5 kind of push you away and saying, hey, you can't do it, because everything in life, if we put our mind to it, we can do it, right? So this is the message that I'm sharing with all you guys out there, is that even though there's something there, you can't just use that to as a reason why you can't do it.
yeah,
Use it as a reason as to why you're doing what you need to do, right? So if
yeah,
that makes sense, I know most people say, I got a 9 to 5, I don't got enough money, I can't do it.
yeah,
But I think the reality is, if you ask the question the other direction, is I got a 9 to 5, what do I need to do to stop working from 9 to 5?
yeah,
Then your mind is um thought to think differently, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
you're not shutting your mind down to not thinking about the possibility of what you can do,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So hopefully, if anything, hopefully that message is what I want to preach out to you guys.
Yeah,
Is
you
awesome.
closed like what, 4 deals within January? Is that
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like
So,
that?
so yeah, we did quite a bit there. But it takes time, because it's not just it's not just overnight success. You know, it
Yeah.
did take time. One of those four deals we actually, I think it took me about like 3 years to get, because
Oh,
I've been, following up with the lady for about 3 years before
yeah.
actually getting to a
Is that one
solid.
of the deals that we might discuss later?
No, no,
Oh,
I've
oh,
got
okay.
quite a bit.
Damn, you got too many deals.
Yeah.
All right. So how was the 10x Growth Con?
Yeah. So, for those that hasn't gone, I know Grant Cardone does these little ones here and there. Um, get a taste of those if you don't want to spend like 500 to 1,000.
Yeah.
But I can say that if you do, if anything, I always say, you know what, if you're educating yourself, that's just education money that you're spending, right?
Yeah.
It's really worth it. I mean, you get a different level of mindset coming out of that growth
Yeah.
con, right? And the important thing too is that there's all these millionaires and even billionaires that are coming out, right? Multi-millionaires that are coming out,
Yeah.
and you hear their story, and most of their story is just, you just got to take a leap of faith and follow your dreams.
Yeah.
That's mainly all their message to everybody.
Yeah. So, I mean, you attend these conferences. You're still continually educating yourself, right? Is that why you attend these conferences, or you're just going because you like the guy?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, right? So
Yeah.
the guy, I think, comes out a little bit strong, I guess,
Yeah.
in the way he preaches his message. But once you start to understand it, it's very, very understandable in terms of where he's coming from.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's one piece of it. But the other piece is always like, how do I learn more? How do I continually motivate myself, right? And this guy kind of is one of those guys where you're like, oh wow, you're learning new stuff, and you know, once you're done with this meeting or conference, you come out, you're like, man, I want to keep doing this. You just have that feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's cool. I meant to go too, but I couldn't. But I think for sure this coming year, if he still holds it, I'll come out. Let me see. So, what is like? Why does real estate interest you? Because uh, you said you could kind of see that real estate it's a way for you to kind of build yourself and stuff like that. But why not like stocks? Why not that consumer inventory thing that you were talking about? Why not purchase stuff and sell it on Amazon or something like that? Why pick real estate over those things?
And I don't, I haven't really, thought too much as to why, but I think it was just dabbling to all the different directions. You know what I mean?
Uh huh.
And that's kind of what stick the most, right? So, and the other piece too is a lot of the stuff that I focus on talks about, mainly like real estate based stuff. So
Mhm.
that's what kind of pushed me towards that direction, is that, you know, eventually when you do all this other stuff, all this other business type, what happens is you got like inventory left over, right?
Yeah.
So those inventory, if it gets obsolete, you're pretty much stuck with those inventory.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in reality, I think pretty much as I start to do this, I think that real estate's not the only answer to getting rich and wealthy, but it is one of the, like, one of those avenues that's actually there too.
Yeah.
And I used to be hardcore, I used to be hardcore, hey, real estate is it, and nothing else. But as I
Uh-huh.
start to kind of get a little bit more, I wouldn't say I would say like experience or more
Yeah.
understanding.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's other avenues to also getting to that same goal. It's just
Yeah.
what road you take,
Yeah.
if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. You're becoming a more mature and experienced investor now.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So, what does your portfolio look like now? I mean, you've done how many deals within? Well, how long ago did you start?
So when I first, the idea came about in like 2015.
Yeah.
And so I started reading upon things, I didn't really pick up my first property until January of 2016.
Okay.
So that's when I kind of got started rolling.
Okay. Let's talk about your first deal, your first property. How did that go, or how did you
So
find it?
right, so my first property was actually just right off the MLS.
Uh-huh.
And I was that was when bigger pockets started getting popular, and
Yeah.
they talked about. Give me a second.
So if you guys don't know, Bigger Pockets is a real estate investment online community, and I'm a member on there. I'm sure two is, and they have a ton of free, great resources and information on there. So yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
So yeah, I started looking into that, and they talked about the 1% rule, right?
Yep.
So, and this was like 4 years ago when the real estate market was picking back up. So I thought I thought the property that I picked met that 1% rule. So I just kind of took that and say, oh, I got a good deal. I'm good, right? So so I pretty much I bought a property and I said, how much can I rent it for? And just in case you guys didn't know what the 1% rule is, it just says, if you bought a house for 100,000, you can rent it for 1,000. You know,
Yeah.
if you bought a house for 200,000, you can rent it for 2,000. Right. So
Yeah.
that's essentially what the 1% rule was. So I was able to pick up a property for about 98,000,
Yeah.
and I was able to rent it for 1,100. So
Yep.
I mean, I kind of beat the 1% rule. So I said, hey, you know what? I'm pretty good at what I do.
So that rule is just a rule. So it's
It's
not an
just a rule,
analysis. There's other things that comes into play.
right?
There's like trash, water, all that other stuff. But generally, that 1% rule, kind of puts you in the ballpark that you might have a good deal. You might
Yeah.
have a good deal, but not necessarily a good deal. You want to go do more analysis. But when you started, did you just say, "Hey, it looks good"?
Well, yeah, I think mainly I was looking really at the number,
Yeah,
and something in the 3 bedroom, 2 bath, because those are like the common ones.
yeah,
So that's what I was really like aiming for. And it was the one I picked up was a 3 and 1.
yeah,
So it was good. The math, I think, I self-managed at the time, and I mean I still do now, but I was able to do the math, and I was bringing in about $360 for that house
uh-huh,
alone.
yeah.
So I thought we were doing pretty good in terms of what on average what most people make, right? So
Y-
uh, I know
So,
most people recommend like 200 at
yeah,
the end of the day, per door is what's considered good. So
yeah,
we almost double that. So
yeah. So, how did you fund this deal? I mean, you found out the MLS, you called the agent, and then how did you purchase it? Like,
so
you had $98,000 sitting in your bank account.
I don't think as an engineer we're that rich, but there is alternative as you start to look. My mentor once said to me, because I think the biggest thing people always have the fear of in real estate is that you got to have money to get into real estate.
Yeah,
But the reality is, the mentor that told me at the time when I first started, he says money's everywhere, you just got to look at it, you just got to tune your mind to look at it, right?
yep,
So as I start to get into this, one thing I noticed was that there was money everywhere, right? So uh, I looked into my like one of the things I did try to dabble into was the 401k.
okay,
So I did have a 401k at my corporate America job.
yeah,
So I said, you know what? How do I tap into this money,
yeah,
right? So the 401k, you can actually, you got to check with their guideline, and I'm not a CPA or anything like that, but they do allow you to loan up to about 50%. We're not talking about a withdrawal, okay? So this is a loan.
yeah,
There's actually two types of loan on the 401k. The first loan is a primary resident loan
hmm,
for your personal home, which they allow a longer time. I think it was like, I can't remember how long, like 8 years or something like that to repay.
yeah, yeah,
But I took a general loan, So
Uh-huh.
in a general loan, they allow you about 50% of the loan of the amount that you have. So let's say, for example, you got 100,000 in there, they allow you to loan up to 50,000, or if you have 30,000, they allow
Yeah.
you to loan up to 15,000, right? Or 50,000 of that account. So if you have 300,000, they only allow you to loan like 50,000.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's how I was able to initially fund my down payment money for
Yeah.
this. So
Uh,
because it was a regular home, I was able to get a loan too. And at the time, I think my credit score was close to about like 740 or something like that.
yeah. Yeah.
And I qualified for 15% down rather than the 20% down for an investment home.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you do the math at 100,000 at a 15% down,
That's good.
I think at the
15.
end of the day we came close to like putting 20,000 down or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, closing costs and whatnot. So that's how we were able to get into that first deal.
Okay. Yeah. What you just described, what your mentor said is true. There's money everywhere. I mean, the government just print $2.2 trillion
Yeah,
of money, which we'll talk a little bit about. But yeah, money is everywhere. You just gotta find it. Most people don't know that they have access to their 401k or their retirement account, or
yep.
life insurance, which we talked about in one of the discussion. But yeah, yeah, that's great that you were able to, use that. Essentially, that's your money, but if you don't use it, that 401k is it's pretty much your money, but if you
Yeah.
don't use it, it's there.
Yeah,
And
correct, correct.
so, yeah, so it's good that you're able to pull some money out or take a loan against it to use for your investment.
Yeah.
So that's
They do
great.
charge an interest on that loan amount, but all that interest gets paid back to yourself over time.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Um, what's
when
the what's the process to get approved? Is there a long, rigorous approval process, or how is that?
it depends on what you have. I know with me, I had Vanguard.
Uh,
I'm sure you can do it with Fidelity and things like that. But I know I had Vanguard, and I just pretty much logged into their portal, and you know it allows you to do a withdrawal, right? So I just it's a click, 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 and you click submit, and you're good to go.
so they don't pull credit, anything like
No,
that.
they don't pull credit because I mean
Yeah,
it is your money, right? So
yeah.
uh, I was able to log into my account, and within that, I just you enter the bank account and things like that, and they just take the money out, and each month they just withdraw from your paycheck until you pay everything off. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah. That's a great thing about like these. It is your money. It's locked up till you're 51 and a half. But
Yeah.
if you know how to use it, like what you just did, there's no loan application or anything like that. It's easy for you to access your money.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I
That's
think
great. Uh,
yeah, the other piece to that too is for some of you guys that are on the edge about that, the way what kind of convinced me to take that money out was one, of course, the desire, but two, it was also the fact was I looked at it in terms of how much can the mutual fund or this 401k give me in terms of return ROI, right? So I looked at it and I said, okay, let's say if it gave me 8% to 12% return on that money every year, okay,
hmm
how much can I get if I took that money and I loaned it over here on this side on the house? And
Yeah.
I think when I did the ROI for that single family that I bought, the 3-in-1, I was able to get like close to like 32% or something like that. So I was like, I pretty much almost tripled it. So I say it's a no-brainer. Plus, I get that money like right away, right? So that $300 or whatever I said I was making, I automatically get that at the end of every month or at the beginning of every month, right? So
Yeah.
rather than me waiting until I'm like 59 and a half or whatever, right?
Yeah. And if you waited 30 years, that property is paid down by your tenant anyways.
Yeah,
So
pretty much. So overall, I still win, right? So
yeah, yeah. So that's great. How about a recent deal that you've done? Can we talk about a deal? Maybe you go more into details about it.
yeah,
Do you
so
have a deal in mind?
I I know we talked about flips, and I thought about this question the other day too, as you and I talked, and I think a lot of us has talked about single family home flips, commercial flips, but not a lot of people talk about land. So I like to kind of just dabbled on that a little bit because I did do some land flips,
Okay.
and it could be good or bad depending on what.
Hey, that's great. Uh, the type of deal, it's a land deal, right?
It's raw land,
Okay.
nothing else but bare land on there, right? So there's multiple stage in terms of raw land. So you could either sell it as raw land, you
Uh-huh.
can either zone it, which requires you to get tenant mapping, and then there's a stage of that. There's a stage of improvement planning.
Uh-huh.
You go to the city, you get the improvement where the lights going, the water's going, the sewage is going. So the improvement plan is a little bit more excessive in terms of how you want to lay the plot of land out. It gets a little bit more aggressive, but
Yeah.
there are land investors that does that. Um, and then then at that point it becomes a new development, right? So you
Yeah,
got the
yeah, that's a development. Yeah.
KB Homes, Lennar, Syntex. I
Yeah.
don't know what's out there in terms of new construction, but those are the big ones around here in
Yeah.
Fresno, right? So what they do is they buy it, and then they buy it. They normally buy it once they get the tenant mapping approved by the
Yeah.
city, meaning your big old piece of land, 10, 20, 30 acres can be divided into these small little lots. So with that, they pay a little bit more per acre.
Yep.
But
Yep.
in this particular case, I just flipped raw land,
So
and
how did you find this deal? How did you find this land?
so I think it's becoming more pertinent nowadays. But I found it through a website called Bid for Asset,
Uh-huh.
and Bid for Asset, the website, instead of them doing that at the county auction or at the step nowadays, they just do it online, right? So
Yeah.
if you go to Bid for Asset and you look by county, I don't know about Minnesota, but I know California, most of our counties are starting to move that direction to web based. So the
Hmm.
way I found it was they list all the properties that will be going into auction. So let's say if it's going to go to auction in like a month or 3 weeks, they'll
Yeah.
put that list of all the properties out there. So what I did was I pretty much it's a reverse, kind of like a reverse engineer, right? So you take what's listed on there, you take the APN, you
Yeah.
run it in there, find out who the owner of that property is,
Uh-huh.
and you contact them directly before you get to the auction,
Yeah.
right? So you buy it outside the auction. Because when you get to the auction, you're pretty much competing with like all the big guys, the guys
Yeah.
that got more money than you, right?
Yeah. And like profession, I mean, and development investors,
Yeah.
and so there's more competition at that point. Yeah.
Correct. I mean, the bid for asset is not just raw land. It's also single family, commercial properties. I mean, whoever doesn't pay their tax, I
Yeah.
think after the fifth year, they send you to a tax auction.
Yeah.
And in a tax auction, that's how the county gets their money, right? Their
Yeah.
tax money, property
Yeah.
tax. Is if you don't pay for it, they put you to auction, and then
Yeah.
the highest bidder gets that money, right? And then that's how they pay themselves, right? So
Yeah.
they,
Yeah.
they have the right to take ownership of that property. So through auction process, but through that process, it gets a little bit tedious because now you have to go through. If you buy it through there, you can't really flip it for at least a year because
Uh-huh.
there's a redemption period that the owners can come back and try to redeem it. I believe, right? So you guys
Yeah,
look at.
yeah, we have it up here. I think we talked about it in one of the episodes. But yeah, yeah, there's a redemption. There's usually a redemption period.
Yeah,
Which the previous owner could come back and purchase it or take it
yeah.
back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there is that, right? But just keep in mind there's a tax lien auction and
Yeah.
tax deed auction, right? So
Yeah.
instead of California, we're a tax deed. Okay. So with that, it the title, they won't give you a clear title. They won't ensure title,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you have to wait at least a year. So you can't just buy the property online and go around and flip it. Now
Yeah.
the tax deed auction is different from a foreclosure. A foreclosure, you can buy it, fix it, and turn it right around, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
a tax deed, it gets a little bit difficult.
yeah.
And for those who knows a little bit more about the foreclosure process, maybe I'm wrong on that piece too. But I know that a lot of the people that I seen that buys the foreclosure, they just turn right around and flip it.
If you guys know more about the foreclosure process, put in the comments,
Yeah,
and
let me
then
know. Let me know. Um,
help us out. So you kind of reverse engineer the property. You
yep,
contact the owner, and
yep.
then for this one you got hold of the owner and you purchase it from the owner, or how did that
Yeah,
go?
yeah. So this particular owner, this particular property is out of Merced County, right? So
Uh huh.
the owner is out of the Bay Area and he's had it for like forever and he hasn't paid it because the deal went south. So what I do is I send one of these like, oh, I happen to have one. I send one of these little cards, right? So
Yeah.
the little card just says, hey, your property's going to a tax auction on this date. Let me know what we can do, and maybe I can help you, and we can probably get you out of the situation and give you some money
Uh huh.
rather than just the auction taking over.
Okay.
And then I sent it to the gentleman, very nice guy. I think he's in his like 80s,
Uh,
and he reached out to me, and he had like two properties. He At one point in time he had like over like 20 properties in that area. They were all auctioned off,
yeah.
so it left with like two properties. I picked up this property. I bought both properties from him,
Uh
right?
huh.
So two pieces of land. They're probably about 2 miles apart from each other,
Uh huh.
give or take. I bought one because it was owned free and clear. The other one, which we'll talk about, had a
Yeah.
lien on there. So I couldn't buy this one because there was still a beneficiary that
Yeah.
owned the note to this second property. So I bought the first property, and I was able to. I think I bought that particular. If you want to talk about numbers, I can
Yeah.
talk about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So I bought that first property for, I believe, after everything, 18,000 is what I paid for, and I think he owed the county about $15,000 worth of tax,
Uh
right?
huh.
So that property has been in foreclosure or tax auction for forever. I think he owed over like 12 or 13 years worth of tax,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So that's how we owe so much. So
Yeah.
15,000 was pretty much just to pay the tax off,
Yeah.
and then I paid title and everything, and then I think at the end of the day he made like 2 grand.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he was pretty happy about that because he kept getting all these letters that he's got to pay and he doesn't want to deal with it. But that's the thing about real estate is sometimes when you're stuck with it, you're really stuck with it if nobody else wants to buy it, right?
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
like the stock market where you can just buy it and then sell it right away.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
slow process. Like, you got to put it on the market. Hopefully somebody comes with enough money to buy it.
Yeah.
Anyway, long story short, he was very happy. He was very happy with this particular deal because he made like 2 grand or something like that. I said,
Yeah,
uh,
this I mean, and you said maybe he owned like 20 properties before. So this guy at one point was a real estate investor, and now
yeah,
he's at a different point in his life, right?
correct, correct.
Yeah, it's and
I
so
think he was like he was more of a novice. I guess.
yeah.
I I wouldn't say novice. I think accidental landlord. I guess.
Oh.
And I think the property used to be like a good amount, like 20 or so acres. And what was happening was they were buying it to do
Yeah,
what I was saying. They were chopping it up.
yeah,
So
yeah,
chopping it up, they were able to sell off those individual pieces for a higher gain, right?
yeah, yeah,
So what happened in this particular case was that him and his partner, they went sour. His partner went sour,
oh,
so he didn't know what else to do. So the property just kind of got stuck there. And
yeah,
as auction happens, a lot of these properties just kind of went, right. So
yeah.
the people started buying. He just kind of started losing all his properties. And I was able to pick this one up. And he says, "Wow, you're the first guy to give me money in like over 12 years." So I usually owe money, right? So
Yeah, yeah,
he
yeah.
was so happy to get that.
Oh yeah, damn.
And the funny thing was his daughter was also a lawyer, which confuses the crap out of me. And she couldn't do anything about it. But anyway,
She could have easily bought it, but
You probably could, but I mean, I think where you're in that circle of influence, you
yeah,
kind of the headaches that they are going through, and with that, you can't see outside of that, right? And
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
only thing
yeah,
I'm sure in her mind was, oh, I'm not going to buy this property because it's going to just give me more headache too,
yeah,
taking it
yeah,
from my dad to myself, right?
yeah,
But anyway, so that's how I was able to acquire that property, and with that was with my own money, right? So most people with land, they don't really you know how with single family they have like 30 days, 45 days.
yeah.
Most land, it can take up to like 90 days to a year
Hmm.
because a lot of it doesn't have attachment. So you can have escrow open for that long.
Yeah,
I mean, it's single family you could too, but with most single families, you want to just say, hey, if you don't buy it, I'm going to sell it to the next guy, right? But
yeah,
with
yeah,
you don't have that option, right?
yeah.
Because not everybody wants to buy land. So, I mean, you can leave it open and try to sell the contract, but in my case, I just bought it and I flipped it.
Hmm.
So the way I flipped it, if you want to go into that,
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah, yep, yep.
so the way I bought it was I pretty much looked at that property and looked pretty much around the neighboring area. So I sent them another one of these, right?
Man, I gotta
Uh,
know your yellow card secrets.
yeah, so I mean, it comes in all color, right? I mean, it just happened
Yeah.
to have it on my desk because it
Oh,
comes like this, all types of color. So
yeah,
in there, it just has, hey, this property, my property, this is you. In the back, I just says, hey, I own this particular, this is a little different, but
yeah,
I take a screenshot, half a screenshot of, hey, this is the parcel, and I'm interested in selling it. Let me know if you're interested in buying it.
yeah,
Right? Because normally we always buy, but in
yeah,
this case, I mail them to sell.
yeah,
So not a lot of people call me, but I also tried to cold call those individuals around that property, and this my mail made it to this lady, right? So the
yeah.
lady owned the adjacent property next to it,
Uh-huh.
right? So she owned the property next to it, and she was interested in buying it because
Yeah.
she had just bought that 1 acre because it's an acre, right?
Uh-huh.
Mine was here and hers was here next to it, each other, like
Yeah.
next to each other. And she called me and she said, "Hey," because she bought her land for about 75,000 and she paid cash.
Oh,
So
damn.
mine, I was advertising. I think I was advertising like 85,000 or something like that. I
Yeah.
bought it for 20. I advertised it for 85. Right. So
Yeah.
uh, she actually she actually reached out to me and she was talking to me, and I still remember her to this day. She reached out to me and she was telling me, hey, in this particular land, Merced County, it was in Dos Palos, right? So
Uh-huh.
she was telling me, hey, you know what, the property doesn't have water rights and this and that. And I've never bought land before. This is my first land deal. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, whatever that means, I don't care. Are you interested in buying it or not? That was kind of my attitude.
Yeah, yeah.
So she's like, hey, there's no water rights to the property. There's an easement because the property in front of it had actually fenced off about like 20 feet into my property. And I've never heard of the easement. And, this is
Uh-huh.
like me 3 years into it. But there was a lot of stuff in land that if you get into land gets very difficult because you got easement rights, water rights, mineral rights, land rights. I mean, you got a lot of
Yeah.
rights
Yeah.
that you don't have, right? Like you might own the land, but you don't own the rights to those. So
Yeah.
like the in this particular case, the water rights is owned by the Dos Palos, the city of Dos Palos, right? So what that means
Yeah.
is that you can't drill a well or you can't tap into the sewer unless they approve you to do so.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, long story short, I think she was motivated enough to just say, "Hey, I want to buy it," but she wasn't going to buy it at 85,000.
Uh-huh.
So she said, I'll buy it at 60." So we kind of went back and forth, and well, she said 50, I say 70, and we kind of met in the middle at 60.
Uh-huh.
So she was actually going to wire me the money. She said, "Hey, so can I give you the 60,000?" I'm like, whoa, 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 no, and this is one thing I
Wait,
always tell
someone
people,
gave you money and you don't want it?
right? I mean,
Yeah.
that I guess that's just the person that I am. She's like, "Can I give you the money?" And I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, don't, don't ever." I tell people this all the time. Don't ever give people direct money, because
Yeah.
once you give me money, you're pretty much lost all control of that money.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
you can take them to court, but it's going to take you 9 times that amount to get that money back.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so I told her, I said, the way this is going to work is I'm going to have you sign this agreement, this purchase and sales agreement.
Yeah.
We're going to put it through escrow, and you're going to wire your money into escrow. And then from there, escrow distribute all the money to all of us. So escrow is the middle person,
Yeah.
right? So for all you new people out there that wants to buy properties, make sure that you don't give money directly to the seller,
Yeah.
okay? Because once you do, you're done. Even the earnest money, tell them that everything will go through title, okay?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
title is where the middle person, the mediator,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah, so title companies like I think you use Chicago
yeah, I
title.
use Chicago.
Up here I use Arden, America First. There's a bunch of different title companies. You just do a title company search and you talk to one of the agents there. They'll help you with the transaction. So they'll set up all the escrow accounts and do all the payments and do all the search, everything like that. Right.
Yep.
So okay, go
So,
ahead.
and another piece to add to that is, a lot of the stuff that I did was because I had a good title person.
Uh-huh.
In theory, my ideas were good, but I couldn't do it without a title person. So
Yeah.
you have to find a title person that knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because I would say about 80 to 90% of the title folks out there only knows how to do your traditional transaction. We list it on the MLS. It comes in through a form, and
Yeah.
that form gets pushed this way, that way. So
Yeah.
when you get into like a lot of the creative stuff, like contract assignment or double closing or seller finance, you got to have a pretty I would say like smart, I guess, title escrow officer, because they do all the hard work, all the heavy lifting, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I know some of our deals we did like seller financing with extra percent and this one down. So the person has to know how to do that, right? Has to interpret all that into the contract.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
but anyway, I mean, back to this particular deal that we're talking about, right? So the lady reached out to me. We finally got everything pushed through, and I think that was within like a 2 week time frame.
Yeah.
I made I bought it for 18. I sold it for 60, and I made about 40,000
Yeah.
in the 2 weeks time frame.
2 weeks.
Yeah, in 2 weeks. So I was hungry for blood, right? So I was hungry for blood. So I reached back out. This is a very hard lesson learned. Thank God I came out positive. So I reached out to the same seller again to go after his second property, the
Yeah.
property I couldn't buy because there was a lien on there. So what had happened was I had to find out who the beneficiary was,
Yeah.
who was originally his partner, right? So I reached out to the beneficiary, and the beneficiary had no clue who I was. So I had to explain all this stuff to him. The beneficiary in this case is kind of like the bank, right? So they own
Oh, okay. Yeah.
the rights to that prop. Well, you own the grand deed, but they own the deed of trust, right? So there's
Yeah.
still kind of a deed of trust to the property. And so I think the deed of trust, I can't remember the exact amount, had like 60,000 or something ridiculous on there, right?
Uh-huh.
So I pretty much reached out to him. He got his lawyer involved, his son involved, his lawyer involved. So it gets kind of scary when they have their lawyer talk to you, because you're like, oh shoot, now I'm in trouble, right? Because
Now, now I
you
need
know,
to go get a lawyer too.
yeah, right. Because they're getting a lawyer involved, and you're like, oh shoot, what do I know, right? But
Yeah.
I think dabbling through it, what you have to understand too is nine. I would say probably 5 times out of 10, all the lawyers that I've met, knock on wood,
Yeah.
don't know every aspect of real estate, right? So
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
a lot of them are their personal family lawyer, right? That deals with their hey, how do I put this in a will? How do I put this in a trust?
Yeah.
How do I get out of this lawsuit? This and that. They're not really like real estate versed. So this particular lawyer contacted me, and him and I have gone back and forth, and I explained the situation. And long story short, his lawyer after like 2 weeks didn't want to deal with me anymore because he's just like, okay, this guy just wants to buy the property.
Yeah.
And I told him I'm not going to pay him 60,000 to clear title, right?
Yeah.
Because that property already owes like, I don't know, like another probably like 10 or 15,000 in
The
tax
tax.
lien.
Yep.
So I
Yep.
tell him, look, none of us is going to make money if it goes to the tax auction. It gets cleared. He isn't the beneficiary, isn't going to get any money.
Yeah.
The title holder isn't going to get any money. None of us is going to make any money. So why
Yeah.
don't I just give him some money to clear this so that we can put this transaction through? So his lawyer didn't want to deal with me anymore. So I started talking to the stepson. The stepson didn't want to deal with me anymore. So I had to talk to him. So I had a deal between the stepson and him.
Uh-huh.
So long story short, the stepson finally agreed. I sent them a form because again, like I was telling you, title is your key person, right? Your
Yep.
title officer is the key person. So she sent me a form. I say, what do I need to do to allow them to waive this off? So she sent me a letter of demand, right? So she said, hey, they have to sign this letter of demand. Okay, so the letter of demand, there's a few options in there. The first option shows like how much they owe, this and that. Or I think the third option or fourth option that we went with was how much they're willing to part way with, right? So I think they part way with like $500 from 60,000 to $500. They're willing to part way, right? So later on, I found out in this particular case, I just negotiated a short sale, right? So I didn't know that it was a short sale during this whole process, right? So he signed off on the letter of demand for $500. The owner itself, after everything, made another like $2,000.
Yeah.
The beneficiary person made $500, and I got this piece of land, right?
So this is your second piece of land?
Yeah, this is the second piece of land.
Yeah.
Remember, after I sold the first one, I went after this again.
Yeah.
So I bought this piece of land, and I was thinking I can do the same thing, right? So I looked everywhere again around that property, and I sent out letters. I started sending out letters.
Yeah.
And I put it on Craigslist and everything, and a lot of people contacted me, and they were asking me, hey, so how does this particular property have? How do we access this property because it was landlocked? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I see landlocked, but I don't know what it is, right? like I was telling you, when I was buying this, it was a lot. I mean, when you buy land, there's a lot of stuff to learn.
Yeah.
So I got, I couldn't get it to sell because one, nobody could access the property.
Yeah.
Two, there was no water rights to it, right?
Yeah.
So every person that I talked to and I showed the property to wanted to build something on there, but they couldn't because of the water rights.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm stuck with this piece of land that doesn't have access to the main road.
Yeah.
So I was screwed. That was my first lesson. I mean, I couldn't sleep for nights. I mean, you talk about going from, oh my God, I'm the king of everything to, oh, now I'm really screwed. So I'm about 20,000 on that property. And so I started contacting everybody around it. And there was another.
Now you bought a problem land versus the first one.
Yeah, I bought a problem land, right? So I did reach out to another property that was adjacent to mine.
Yeah.
That lead to the main street. So I've looked at that history, and this guy had also bought it from auction 5 years ago. Right, so he bought it for I think like 8,000 or whatnot, and so he lives out in. I had to cold call him. So he lives out in Sacramento. So I called him. Long story short, he didn't want to buy it because he didn't know what to do with it. Also,
yeah.
So I think he was pretty happy. I bought his land, which is like 1.8 or 1.9 acre. I bought it for 25,000. So he almost triple his money. So he was happy to sell it, right?
Yeah.
So now I got 2 pieces of land.
Oh wait, so you reach out for him to buy your land, But
Yeah.
you end up buying his land.
Correct. Because
Okay,
he
all
didn't
right.
want to buy it, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I ended up buying two pieces of land that are adjacent to each other. But that second property or third property allowed me to get to the main street.
Yeah.
And what had happened was nobody else wanted to buy it. Nobody else in that area wanted to buy it except one guy.
Uh-huh.
So my buyers list went from like this much to one guy. So I was pretty screwed. I was thinking about I have to hold on to that property for like 10 years until they develop into that area.
Yeah.
This person had another property he had to sell. So anyway, long story short, it took us about 7 months before he sold his property and was able to buy mine. So
Uh-huh.
that second particular property, the 2.9 acre, two piece
Yeah.
combined, I sold it for 65,000, and
Uh-huh.
out of pocket, I think I bought it for like 40 or something like that. So I ended up making like 20,000 out of it.
Yeah.
But I did, I gotta say, I did sweat some bullets on that one.
But you
Cause
learned all this but you learned all this stuff. You could be a land developer now.
oh, yeah, I mean that was the thing too. Is I mean nobody really talks about land,
Yeah.
right? But flip land too.
Uh,
Um, anyway, I
but
mean that's kind of
I
my
think you might know her, my buddy, C Chain.
sea
She's a
change.
developer down there, so you might want to reach out to her for future deals
Okay,
in
yeah,
Fresno. Yeah.
yeah.
Um. Okay. Well, that's great, but it seems like you're spending. I mean, these deals that you're doing, you're spending a lot of time reaching out to people, putting on Craigslist, sending mailers out,
Yeah.
talking to their lawyers, their stepson, all this stuff. So you're still working at 9 to 5. How do you have time to, like, when do you have time to do all this stuff?
So I don't eat and I don't sleep, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, luckily, the good thing is I usually call them during break.
Uh-huh.
And the number one thing the second thing after our first one was you got to be consistent. I mean, consistency is the key to this market, right? You got to be consistent. And I was consistent, right? Because I followed up with the son every single day or every
Uh-huh.
other day. Even though they don't pick up, I leave voicemails. So I'm
Yeah.
pretty persistent with that. I leave voicemails and I say, hey, what's going on? Can I help? Is there anything I can do to speed it up? I
Uh-huh.
follow up.
Yeah.
So I normally I during lunchtime I follow up. During break I follow up, and so the particular hours I work is not necessarily 9 to 5. Mine is like 6:30 to about 3 to 4.
Uh-huh.
So that allows me a little bit of daylight left to do the stuff that I need to do.
Okay.
So after works is when I follow up too.
Okay. So after work, yeah, you don't play games or go fishing. This is sort of your fishing game, buying land and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, so I used to fish too in the good old days before I got married and had kids and learned that I got to take on all these priorities, right? So,
Yeah. Well,
that
that's awesome. I know that my broker is also an investor, and yeah, we were talking about a lot of the land developments that he's done, and some of the stuff I'm like, damn, dude, how did I get into it? Like
yeah.
one of your first deal, that was a killer deal. But there are things that could come up, just like your second and third land deal there. So,
Oh yeah. Oh
uh,
yeah.
yeah, well, I now if people want to learn land deals, call Tu Vang from Fresno. He's an
I
expert
don't know if I'm
now.
the expert at that, but I do know a little bit about it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah, but I mean, instead of fighting, I think the other strategy too is instead of fighting over all the single families
yeah,
homes and try to flip them because it gets so competitive. Not a lot of people's in land,
yeah,
and
yeah,
land is kind of boring because it's not flashy, right? Like it's not
yeah.
like, oh, I just made a house look very nice. It's just like dirt, right? But that in itself can also be a positive, right?
Yeah,
Because most of the times, not a lot of people are not a lot of people are attached to their land. Like who's attached to like 10 pieces of dirt, 10 acres worth of dirt, right? Like
yeah,
who
yeah,
is? But I'm sure if you're gonna buy this dilapidated house that's fallen apart, that the roof has caved in, but this old lady says, "Hey, I made 50 years of memory in that house. I don't want to sell it. Now
Yeah.
you're gonna have a harder time to try to sell it. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
So
yeah. You know what? I never thought of that. Like people don't usually get attached to the land.
yeah, they don't. I mean, it's just dirt. There's no emotional
Yeah,
attachment. Now, I mean, if you know, if your dad and you used to hunt on it, there's some emotional attachment. But most
yeah,
most of the time, most of the land people I talk to, they're like, "Whoa, okay, I want to sell it. How much can I sell it for?" You know, but
yeah. Okay.
um,
Well, that's
it,
cool, man. Thanks for sharing all that. We're sort of at the hour now, so I
yeah,
want to ask a few more other questions, and then we'll kind of call it. I don't want to take too much of your time.
yeah.
Um, but those are great stories, man. I think I could sit down with you and we could talk real estate all day. So
Oh yeah.
after this, well, this is what we're gonna talk about anyways. So now, sort of the elephant in the globe now, this coronavirus thing, right? As a real estate investor, what are your thoughts about that? Like, should we stop investing now, or what are some of your thoughts?
I think you know, and I'm not an economic or what is it, economic expert or anything like that. This is just my opinion and my opinion
Yeah,
only, right? So I feel that it's still at the current state we're in. It's very much a seller's market still. But what's going to happen eventually is that it's going to turn the tide. And what I mean by that, it's going to turn the tide is that it's going to become a buyer's market. And um, the buyer's market, how it's going to come about is that all these sellers, they're going to be out of a job, right? So the other day, I know we mentioned Goldman Sachs is that 30%, they're estimating 30% of the population is going to be out of a job.
yeah,
So if you just take 10% of that, right? So if you take 10% of that, those people are not going to be able to get back into the workforce right away,
yeah.
right?
It's gonna
So
take time.
because what's going to happen is the employer is going to be scared to try to bring all these force back in because now they have a cost they're going to have to pay.
Yeah,
So I'm sure they're going to bring people back, but they're going to bring a limited amount, just to a skeleton crew, we call it, right? Just to kind
yeah,
of get the business going. And it's going to have what I call like a ripple effect. So, you know, wherever you drop the rock, it's going to have the biggest effect. And
yeah,
now it's going to have the biggest effect because a lot of people, as you all know, I think we were, last I looked, we were at like $6.6 million, 6.6 million unemployment, right? Or something like that
yeah.
nationwide.
I think we're 8% right now.
8%. Yeah.
Yeah,
So with that, I mean, you think about it, all those people is not going to be able to afford their home. And you see the government's trying to do their best not to crash the market too,
yeah,
because they're trying to do all the stimulus package injection into the economy. They're trying to do the 90-day waiver, right?
yeah,
Because most people is not, they're living paycheck to paycheck and they're not going to have that money to pay their mortgage, right? So if they don't have a waiver to allow them to waive the 90 days, what's going to happen is you're going to have all these people fall into foreclosure because they can't afford it,
yeah.
right? So they're trying to put all this stuff in place so that they don't have the foreclosure process happen.
Or at least it minimized foreclosure.
Correct,
Yeah,
correct,
yeah,
right? And so that's when the buyer's market is going to trend into the situation is that you're going to have all these people out of jobs, and over time, you're going to have all these houses come on the market, right?
yeah,
And that's what I mean by, you know, the way I'm going to see it is there's a lot of foreclosure property that's going to come up.
yeah. So all those guys that always said, "Oh, the market's too high. I'm waiting for the market to come down and then I'll buy." Well, your opportunity is coming up. So, as a real estate investor, what are you preparing for a market downturn like this? Like how are you preparing yourself so that when the market do turn down or go down in the next like months or years,
Yeah.
that you're still doing okay or you're still investing? How are you prepping yourself?
So I think with that, you know, I thought about that too. With the current situation we're in, you just got to have some reserve to weather the storm.
Huh?
Um, and, you know, that's essentially pretty much how you can sustain it, right? So in my particular case, you got to have at least up to 6 months to sustain all your property in case your tenants don't pay, right? And we
Yeah.
all know tenants always pay on time, right? So
Well, all my tenants did, well, except for one.
yeah,
But that tenant always have some issues paying a little bit later, so
yeah,
I'll
yeah,
be calling him in a little bit.
yeah,
But everybody else paid, so
yeah,
I'm pretty lucky in that sense.
yeah, yeah,
But I think that as investors, or if you guys are new, educate yourself at this time.
yeah,
Call to Vang if you guys. I don't mean to put you out there, but
yeah,
reach out to other investors and maybe do projects together or something like that. And
yeah,
I think that this downturn, we're gonna be able to, or this how I see it. Um, as investors, we're trying to solve problems, like solve problems.
yeah,
Like what you did with the guy with these land deals. There was issues with these with his partners and all this stuff, and you went in there and resolved these issues. That's how you're able to profit, right?
correct,
So,
correct, correct.
yeah, so you're essentially a problem solver. Like you
Yeah,
go out there and solve these issues. So there's going to be a lot of issues that come up with this economic turmoil.
yeah,
And what we should do as investors is to see what the issues is and then try to resolve those issues. And I think that's where most of the opportunity is going to be.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And essentially, I think you're right on point there, right? At the beginning, when I first got in, was that I used to think it was about the money, right?
Uh-huh.
And what that is, it was just about me, right? So there was a motivational speaker by the name of Zig Ziglar,
Yep.
and his either Zig Ziglar or Jim Rohn, I can't remember, but what they said was the more people you help, the more money you'll get. And I
Yep.
never understood that.
Yeah.
But as I start to get more experience in this, the reality of the truth is it's not when you purposely go out there just to try to help them.
Yeah.
In reality, if you're able to help them resolve their problem, you'll get the money. The money is secondary. So don't
Yeah.
think about the money first. The way I always look at it when I reach out to all these sellers is that I'm looking at them as my friend. I'm looking
Hmm.
at them as how I can help them.
Yeah.
And by being able to help them, I get what I want in return. But you got to
Yeah.
be able to help them first before you can get it in return. Now, I'm not going to say that, hey, you're not going to be lucky by falling into this. Sometimes deals fall into your lap, right? And it's
Yeah.
just like, okay, this guy got in a divorce and they just want to sell their property,
Yep.
right? But indirectly, you're also helping them because they got to figure out their money situation, right? They're trying to sell it to get their money. But the reality, the truth is, if you want to get in this business and to be successful, you got to be able to help other,
Yeah.
right? And that's how you make money.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, start looking to see when you guys will be able to help other people in this downturn that we'll be having. Okay. Well, that's awesome. What are aside from prepping for the coronavirus now? What are your plans and goals for the future for your real estate?
Um, I've talked about this. So one of the things that my wife and I do, we try to do consistently, is that we have yearly goals, and we have yearly goals, we have 5-year goals, and we have 10 years goal, right? So
Uh-huh.
um, I think the yearly goal, we focus on health, financial, family, right?
Yeah.
So I like to believe that with if you can't bond your family together, all that money that you have in the world is meaningless, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's gonna leave you cold and out there, right? So we always look at it in terms of how do my wife and I become as one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and the reality is, this some of the stuff that we do, we try to plan events together so that we have the same mindset. How
Yeah.
can I get my kids on board? How can I stay healthy, right? I mean, look at Steve Jobs. You can have $1 billion, but when you have a health issue, you know
Yeah.
pretty much your money can't help you, right?
Yeah.
So I try to stay active and consistent too. But my long-term goal is pretty much try to have enough passive income to cover my current lifestyle,
Uh-huh.
and pretty much I don't have to work for the rest of my life. I mean, I wouldn't say not work, but more like do the stuff I want to do, not because I have to do it. If
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. I talked to one of my mentor, and he's retired. You guys might know who he is, but I told him he's not gonna retire long. So now
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
back.
I mean, I think we can say retire, but the
Yeah,
reality is we do it because we're passionate, right?
yeah, yeah,
Not because we have to. So when we get up every day, we go to work. If you don't love what you're doing, getting up in the morning is going to be hard, right?
yeah, yeah,
If you love what you're doing, getting in the morning isn't going to be that hard.
yeah, yeah. He's back now, helping other people. So he's doing things he wants to do. So I
Yeah,
think that's just the difference. I think we're all gonna work, but if you get a say in what you want to do, that it makes life more fulfilling. So.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, yeah, that's great. There are a few questions on here, and so
yeah.
I'll
Sure,
ask you a
shoot
few
away.
questions that they have. I think one of the question was how do I become more like you? This person wants to know.
uh, I mean that's a hard question to ask, but I would say a lot of it has to do with mindset.
Uh huh.
I would, one thing I recommend is all the people that has always asked me how to become a real estate investor, how to be successful, this and that. I always recommend, read Rich Dad Poor Dad, read Richest Man of Babylon,
Yeah.
and read Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah.
So by the time you're done with those three books, I don't really have to tell you how to be successful because those three books in itself should be able to give you a core frame of how your mindset should be. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like I'm sure all of us that's talking to each other in real estate has had some level of those core in our understanding. Like Rich Dad Poor Dad. I
Yeah.
mean, you and I could relate to that, right?
Yep.
Because
Yeah.
we both have read it to understand the philosophy of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you're brand new to the investment side of the world, those books will kind of get you in tune to how to approach it and become a certain way, right? So a
Yeah.
lot of the way I am is because I've taken bits and pieces about all these books that I read and make it who I am. So I
Yeah.
don't know if
Yeah.
you're the same.
Yeah. I said like I was gonna ask you about the books recommendation later, but
Yeah,
you already recommended those. Yeah, I think those three are core essential. They're like life and business 101
yeah,
courses
yeah.
that everyone
You know,
should take.
and one thing I always do to stay kind of I guess humble is each time I want to get a new truck, a new car, a new this or a new that,
Yeah,
normally I go back and I read or I listen to the Richest Man in Babylon, right? Because
yeah,
that one teaches you how to be frugal with your money.
yeah, yeah.
So I normally when I get too antsy with what I want to do, I go back and listen to that book. So for you guys that say, hey, do I get a truck first or a car first or do I get a house first? Go read that book and it'll
Yeah,
allow you to be,
yeah.
more
That's
frugal.
a small book, but it's got a
It's a,
bunch
it's
of great concepts in there.
Yeah, it's an easy read too because it's like storytelling, right? Because
Yeah,
normally the other books, they put you to sleep, right?
yeah.
Because they're like research.
That books remind me of like all the stories when I was a kid that my dad and them used to tell me, like these
Yeah,
Hmong stories.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And but this one just about like money and stuff
Correct,
like
correct,
that.
correct.
So
Yeah.
all right, Paku asks, how do you stay motivated juggling a 9 to 5 and real estate? I know many people tend to lose themselves.
I
So how to stay
think again
motivated?
it has you have to have a purpose, right? So my purpose, I have a deep purpose. One, you got to find your purpose, and they talk about why, like why do you do what you do?
Yeah,
Okay, I think sometimes what happens is we get too comfortable and contemplated with what we have, and we just stop chasing what our dreams are.
yeah,
And the way I stay motivated, trust me, even I myself lose motivation because sometimes you just want to take the easy route.
yeah,
But if you do it consistently enough, it becomes more like a habit, right? Like, my analogy is always the first time you take a different way home, it it's hard because it feels weird, right? But if you
Yeah.
take it home consistently enough, it becomes a habit, and your body just on autopilot, right? So you're
Yeah.
driving, you're focusing on the radio, and your body's kind of turning already without really thinking about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it becomes kind of a habit.
Yeah.
Um, but to add on to that, to make it short is, normally every morning when I drive to work, I listen on Mondays. I listen to Get Rich Education.
Mm-hmm.
On Tuesdays, I listen to the Real Estate Guys podcast. On Wednesday, I listen to the Rich Dad Radio Show. On Thursday, I listen to Bigger Pockets podcast. And on Friday, I listen to any of those in between that I miss. But
Yeah.
those three are like, or four are like my favorite podcasts that
Yeah.
I listen to, because what that does is it constantly drills you into the mindset that you need to have in order to be successful.
Yeah.
So those are my kind of like my ritual or my habits. And then
Oh.
Sean Terry, I don't know if you guys know Sean Terry, but that guy's
Yeah.
pretty good too.
Oh. Damn, man. That's really good tip. I think if anything, people just do those five things that you just said.
Yeah,
Listen to those five different podcasts and show. I think
yeah.
that's gonna put you in the right mindset.
Yeah, and I mean that was the other thing too, is it's mobile training, right? I mean you're driving and you're training, right? Rather than me trying to listen to Justin Bieber, nothing against him, or all these rappers trying to rap. I'm like, well, I might as well train myself to listen, right?
Yeah.
But again, I do enjoy myself in terms of my lifestyle too, because in the morning I listen to those just to get my mind tuned into what I need to do to stay
Uh-huh.
motivated. But when I on my drive back home, I do, if it's a really interesting podcast, I listen to it again,
Yeah.
or continue the listening.
Yeah.
If not, I turn on the radio, try to enjoy some music just to wind down at the end of the day.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. Try as I know you touched about this a little bit already, but um, what's your goal for the next 10 years? So let's say 10 years from now, what do you see yourself doing? I mean, are you still doing real estate 10 years from now and your engineering job?
Yeah, so I don't know about the engineering job piece of it,
Yeah.
because I know it's gonna be another hour if we go into this, right? But
It's okay. Everybody stay home. We can do this for 4 hours.
right, so I'm coming up with another program. It's called the give me a second. Yeah, I'm coming up with another program, and in that program, a lot of people use the word "you only live once," right? So
Yeah.
they use that to rationalize what they're gonna do in the meantime.
Yeah.
So in my "you only live once" concept, this is the way I look at life. Okay, 8 hours. So all of us, no matter how rich, dumb, poor, smart you are, has 24 hours in a day. Okay,
Yeah.
so the way I look at it is, you spend 8 hours a day sleeping on average. You spend 8 hours a day working, and you spend 8 hours a day on your leisure time. That
Yeah.
takes 24 hours. Okay,
Yep.
so when I say you only live once, what I mean by that is, do you want to spend the rest of your life working, sleeping, or or spending your leisure time? So to me, if health is such an important thing to us in life, I think I can sacrifice some level of health when I'm still young. And if
Yeah.
I got rid of having to work 8 hours a day, it becomes either a balance between 12 hours of sleeping and 12 hours of my leisure time, or eight
Yeah.
hours of sleeping and 16 hours of my leisure time. So when we're
Yeah.
talking about leisure time, we're talking about time with family, time for yourself, time for your spouse. Just imagine if you had the money
Yeah.
to do what you want and to sustain your lifestyle at this point in time.
Yeah.
Imagine what you can do with your health, your family, right? And I'm not saying that as an excuse not to do it right now, to squeeze those in. But if you had that, what would it be? So,
Yeah.
long term, in short, my 10-year goal is to actually not have to work 8 to 5.
Yeah.
I mean, work because I want to. Like I respond to some of you guys that reach
Yeah.
out to me, because to
Yeah.
me that's fun, right? I
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
But the reality is, we can't keep doing that because we all have to like work too.
Yeah.
But my 10-year goal is to be financially free.
Yeah. Okay, that's awesome. Gene Vang asks, what's the best way to estimate ARV now that this market now with this market and someone who is new. So for someone who is new and now that we have this kind of crazy market,
Mhm.
we're going to get crazy market.
Yeah.
Uh, how would you suggest estimating ARVs? So that's the repair after repair values.
Yeah. So so the easy answer, like everybody always uses, talk to your realtor, right? But I don't take that as an answer because I kind of like to do things myself.
Yeah.
Uh, Normally I use Zillow. On Zillow, there is a function that allows you to check. So if you know a particular property that you're looking at, you can go to Zillow and look at the sold value for that particular area
Uh huh.
and look at the last 90 days, the last 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever you want. I normally I like to look at 60 days
Uh
because it
huh.
gives me a scope of how the market's trending. And so this way I know how to react, right? You just want to make sure that you don't cross any big major streets because then it's almost like it's a whole new world once you cross a major street, right?
Yeah.
So that's how I look at it. I look at the sold value for that particular house in that particular area. And then what I do is I also look at the sell side, right? So I said, hey, if this house sold for 250,000 in the last 6 months, what are they currently selling for? So if they're
Yeah.
selling for 300 or 280, I know it's trending upward, but I
Yeah.
also have to take into the consideration that the market's also changing,
Yeah.
because of the situation it's in. So I give it a little buffer, and I always say, if you're buying a property, if ARV is 200, you're buying it at 100,000, 50% of the ARV or 60%,
Yeah.
the market would have to tank really far, very fast in order to kind of get you out of your situation. So I wouldn't just buy that market value. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
That's how you
As
ARV.
investors, we should not buy at retail anyways. Most of
Oh
the
yeah. Oh yeah.
99% of the deals that we're gonna do are wholesale deals. They're pretty much like 50 to 60% off market prices. So,
Yep.
yeah, like you said, the market really has to tank like 50% for you to mess up
Or break even, I guess.
to break even. Yeah.
If you're buying it at 50%, that is.
Yeah, yeah, you find at 50, yep. Chia Vang, from SAC asks, how often do you send mailers? Uh, and how much mailers do you send each month? And what's your budget? Uh, and what lead gen systems do you implement? So I guess I mean, this is gonna be another show on its own, but why don't you give like a short description of what you do with your mailers and stuff like that?
So that's actually one of my secret to how I pick up properties and
Yeah.
how I can work 9 to 5. Because so the way I do it is I mail in a cycle of 6 months. I mail it once a month. And it depends on your budget, but mine I mail about close to about 4,000 every month.
Uh-huh.
4,000 letter every month. So what that means is I have a budget of like 2,000 a month that I'm spending on mailers.
Okay. If you guys want to know more about Tu's mailing system or deal finding system and lead generation system, request him to come back on the show and he'll share all those secrets with you
Yeah,
guys.
yeah, and I mean I don't hide anything because
Yeah,
the way I look at it is the law of abundance, right? I mean,
yeah,
what I give, I get in return because people come back and ask me, hey, can you help me with this, right? And that's
yeah,
why I always open heartedly help, and it's like, I help you one day, you're gonna come back and say, hey, it might not be through a deal, but you could say, hey, you know what, I got a friend here who wants to buy or sell their house, what can you do,
yeah,
and indirectly it helps.
yeah, yeah, for sure. All right, and that's why you're coming on shows like this, to help people out and stuff.
Yep.
So thanks for doing that.
Yep.
Um, all right, we're past the hour. Okay, I guess one more questions. One more question, Gene. You get the last question, and then we'll kind of end the show because it's past the hour already. Gene Dang asks, two, I've seen you fix your own properties on Facebook. Have you considered getting contractors? So I guess you've done some on I don't know. Yeah, I guess you've done some rehabs.
So the actual flip itself, I have contractors doing it.
Uh huh.
I probably I probably spend like 2% if I'm rehabbing the property, or doing the flip. I probably spent like 2% tightening up things.
Yeah,
Maybe I'll go there and maybe sweep something, or maybe I'll go and fix some electrical because I don't want to get another contractor back out there. Or if it's too small to get a contractor back out there, I'll do
yeah,
it myself for the flip. But I think what she's talking about is some of the stuff that I do on some of my long term hold property.
oh,
And the other piece too is I find that kind of fun. I could easily hire somebody out, but the other thing too is my dad's retired, so I try to keep
uh-huh,
him busy. So
uh-huh, yeah,
that's actually indirectly, honestly, that's how my dad and I spend a lot of time together. Is
yeah,
he enjoys those time doing those little stuff with me, right? So
yeah,
him and I put up a fence. Um, I mean, we put up fence. We do a lot of repairs together. Just stuff that helps us bond together.
yeah,
I think as adults, we kind of take it for granted that our parents will always be there, but the
yeah,
reality is, they don't have that much time to live. They're on the other side of the hill, and all this money is meaningless if at the end of the day you don't have that happiness to say, what, during his or her time that they're here, I've spent all the time that I've given with them. Like, so for example, me and my dad, we spend a lot of time together, and
yeah,
that's through a lot of these properties. He checks on my properties for me. He does a lot of like maintenance stuff for me, but he
yeah,
enjoys it, and I enjoy it with him because it keeps him busy, right? So the reality is, if it becomes way too big, I don't do it.
yeah,
Like fixing, pretty much like replacing AC or doing anything like that. I don't do because it's outside of my wheelhouse and it's way
yeah,
too big. I'm sure if I do it, I can do it myself.
yeah.
But some stuff I just push out.
Yeah, that's great. That piece about, you and your dad, doing work together. I think, uh, and especially if your parents like they enjoy it, right?
Yeah,
So you
yeah,
get your family members or your parents, to come out and do some of the work that they want to do anyways. You get to spend time with each other,
yeah,
right? So
yeah,
I think that's great. All right, so I think that's all the questions we have. I know some people do want to know about your routine, but you kind of explained that a little bit already.
yeah, yeah,
So I'll just move to a few personal questions, and
yeah,
then
yeah,
we'll end the show there, okay?
yeah,
Because you already did the book recommendations. So,
yeah, yeah.
what else do you do other than real estate?
So I do hunt, believe it or not. But I just been busy. So the only time I could really go out there is like dove hunting.
Yeah,
I'm probably not the best at it, but in the future maybe I gotta pay somebody to teach me how to shoot a little bit. But I mean, yeah, I do that. Outside of that, I do judo. Now we're closed, but that's actually how I stay in shape quite a bit. Is that
yeah,
I spend a lot of time after work doing judo.
yeah,
And my kids, that's how my kids and I we bond too, because both of my oldest kid, they do judo too, right? So when we're out there, I mean, they probably don't like it at this age. Sometimes it's fun for them, but most times it's not.
uh-huh,
So, because I mean, it's tiring, right? But to me, it's like we're out there, they're out there, I'm out there, and we're all doing this together.
yeah,
So that's that family bonding time that
yeah.
that we kind of put together.
Oh, that's great. So other than spending time with your family doing judo and some of these activities, what else do you do for fun? Do you do anything for fun just for yourself or?
Um, I think the other thing that I kind of do for fun, and I think I'm just starting to kind of see this is, I also contribute to a lot of the Hmong events, the family events that we have. And I
Uh-huh.
find those kind of fun because that's when you can kind of get together and talk to families and enjoy talking about, just life in general, because we're all so busy, and the only thing that really brings us together, I mean, especially being Hmong,
Yeah.
that the only time that we really come together is either at a Jingle Bell event, maybe,
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe you're Christian, but maybe
Oh
church,
no. Yeah.
or yeah, but in most cases we always regret, right? Because when people die, that's when really really long-term cousins come together, because that you haven't seen for like 10, 15 years, right? So
Yeah.
to me, I like to kind of put all that together, and I go out there and just to kind of spend time. And that's
Yeah.
mainly my routine. I mean, that's how I kind of enjoy things.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's awesome. If people want to get to know, or people want to get a hold of you, how can they reach out to you? If they have
Yeah, I
questions, or they
mean,
just want to,
you guys have my Facebook on there. You can reach out there. I'm always constantly out there. Um, I always monitor the Hmong Real Estate Investor website because that kind of to somewhat interest me too, because there's some
yeah.
questions that I don't know, but I don't know everything. Like I always say, reach out to those guys. There's a lot of you guys that are also experts that can pitch in on some advice, right? So, but Facebook would be the best.
Okay. And then you're in Fresno, California, right?
Yep, yep. I'm in
Okay.
Fresno, so for those that are in Fresno, you guys want to meet up, we can always book some time to meet up and
Yeah.
chat. If you guys want to do that.
Yeah. After the coronavirus thing.
Maybe after
All right, dude. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
You gave a lot of great info. I learned a bunch. I took some notes. I'm gonna use some of this.
Yeah,
For me, especially like the health stuff.
yeah,
That's sort of what I'm trying to focus on this year for me and my family.
yeah,
And so I'm gonna take some of those and um, yeah, I'm gonna use what I learned today. So I hope the rest of you guys did find value and take what you guys learned from two today.
yep, yep. I'm glad that helps out. So appreciate it. Let me know if you guys need anything. You guys, like I said, you guys got my Facebook or just contact me through there. That's probably the best.
Okay. Any last tip or words, and then we'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that.
Just keep grinding. Again, it's not going to come easy. Some of the stuff we talked about, it doesn't come overnight. It takes time. Sometimes it takes a year, 2, 3, and that's when people give up. So don't give up and just keep grinding away.
Okay. All right. With that said, thank you to everybody for joining the Fang Real Estate Show. We'll see you guys next week.
Yep.
All right. See you guys.